Okay, so Nigerian billionaire Adebayo Ogunlesi's company, Global Infrastructure Partners, just made a really huge move. They acquired the Panama Canal ports for like $23 billion. $23 billion. And that gives GIP, which is a subsidiary of BlackRock, control over this massive network of 43 ports across 23 countries. We're talking places like Balboa and Cristobal and Panama. This is a big deal. Here's where it gets interesting. Remember how the U.S. built the Panama Canal back in the early 1900s to connect its coasts for commercial and military reasons? Well, they handed over control to Panama back in 1999. But about 70% of the traffic going through that canal still connected to U.S. ports. So this acquisition is kind of a big deal. Before we go any further, if you're finding this as fascinating as I am, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. You won't want to miss the rest of this deep dive. Now back to Adebayo Ogunlesi. This guy's already a titan in the world of finance. Forbes estimates his net worth at $1.7 billion. With a B, but after this deal, his net worth is probably closer to $2.3 billion. That puts him among the top 2,000 wealthiest individuals on the planet. So how did he get here? Well, he's the chairman, CEO, and co-founder of Global Infrastructure Partners, GIP, an infrastructure investment firm based in New York. Before starting GIP, he spent 2 decades at Credit Suisse, where he really honed his financial skills. He was also the lead director at Goldman Sachs Group, and he's held board positions at some major companies, Callaway Golf Company, Cosmos Energy Holdings, Terminal Investment Limited, and Freeport LNG. Talk about an impressive resume. Under Ogunlesi's leadership, GIP has become the world's largest independent infrastructure manager. We're talking about a portfolio worth over $100 billion in assets. And they're not just focused on traditional finance. They're involved in transportation, natural resources, power generation, you name it. And just to show you how ambitious they are, back in January, they partnered with BlackRock in a deal worth $12.5 billion. This created a massive multi-asset class infrastructure investment company with a client base and assets under management worth over $150 billion. Think about that for a sec. $150 billion. This partnership involved a $3 billion cash payment and the issuance of roughly 12 million shares of BlackRock common stock, all valued at $9.5 billion. This deal is about way more than just money. It shows Ogunlesi's strategic vision and the growing influence of GIP in global infrastructure. Makes you wonder, what does GIP owning the Panama Canal ports mean for international trade, especially with all the history the U.S. has in that region? Right, so we've established that GIP now controls the Panama Canal's ports. But let's really break down why this is such a big deal. Remember that statistic about 70% of the traffic through the canal being linked to U.S. ports? That's huge. The Panama Canal is like a major artery for global trade. It lets ships move goods between the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans way faster and cheaper than going all the way around South America. So anything that affects the canal affects the flow of everything, from oil and gas to clothes and electronics worldwide. Now with GIP in charge of those ports, that raises some big questions. Will this mean smoother operations and lower shipping costs? Or could it create bottlenecks and give GIP too much control over this crucial trade route? It's something everyone's watching very closely. Another is the geopolitical angle. The Panama Canal has always been a sensitive spot because of its strategic importance. Remember, the U.S. was heavily involved in building and running it for a big chunk of the 20th century. Even though they handed over control to Panama in 1999, the U.S. still has major economic and security interests in the region. So when GIP, a subsidiary of the American firm BlackRock, takes over these ports, it definitely raises eyebrows. Some people see it as the U.S. quietly regaining influence in the area, or even if it's through a private company. And to make things even more interesting, President Donald Trump claimed that China was messing with the canal's shipping operations. Now, there's no proof of that, but it just shows how sensitive this whole situation is and how worried people are about foreign influence over the canal. It's a delicate balance of power down there. It's important to remember that the Panama Canal is more than just some infrastructure project. It's a symbol of global cooperation and how interconnected trade is around the world. When Panama took control back in 1999, it was a huge win for diplomacy and their sovereignty. But with GIP's acquisition, there's a new wrinkle. How do we balance private ownership with national interests? It's a tough question. This whole deal has sparked a worldwide conversation. Governments are worried. Businesses are trying to figure out what to do, and analysts are busy making predictions. Some experts think that GIP's experience managing infrastructure could actually make things more efficient and benefit global trade. But others are concerned about potential monopolies and how this could affect prices and access for different countries. There's another layer to this too. This acquisition highlights how powerful private equity firms are becoming. When it comes to global infrastructure, governments are facing budget problems and finding it hard to manage these huge projects. So private companies like GIP are stepping in. That might seem like a good thing because they can bring in money and expertise. But it also raises concerns about accountability, transparency, and whether it weakens a country's control over important assets. As we enter this new era of private companies owning critical infrastructure, we need to have an open and honest conversation about what it all means. The story of the Panama Canal is far from over. It's a constantly changing situation that reflects the complexities of global trade, geopolitics, and the growing role of private enterprise in shaping our world. But before we wrap things up, let's take a closer look at the man at the center of it all, Adebayo Ogunlesi. This guy's journey is pretty remarkable. Born in Nigeria, he went on to study at some of the best schools in the world, Oxford University, Harvard Law School, and Harvard Business School. That education set him up for an incredible career in finance and investment. His story shows how someone from the emerging economy can rise to the top of global finance. It's inspiring for anyone who dreams big, proving that hard work, dedication, and a global mindset could take you far. Ogunlesi's leadership in GIP's acquisition of the Panama Canal ports has definitely shaken things up. People around the world are talking about what it means for the future of global trade, the power of private equity, and the shifting balance of power on the geopolitical stage. This whole deal's a wake-up call. It shows that the world is constantly evolving, with new players and forces emerging all the time. To keep up, we need to be adaptable, think strategically, and understand the complex web of economic and political factors shaping our world. So you think about this deep dive into the Panama Canal ports deal. Consider the bigger picture. How might this change global trade routes and relationships? What does it say about the growing influence of private money in the central infrastructure? And how could it affect the delicate balance of power in a region with such a complex and sensitive history? These are just some of the questions worth pondering as we navigate this era of globalization, rapid technological change, and the constant push and pull between economic and political forces. If you found this deep dive insightful, hit that like button and subscribe to the deep dive for more explorations of the events and ideas shaping our world. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep.